Good evening, everyone, and I'll call to order the December meeting of the Evanston Preservation Commission. We have a quorum of 6 commissioners present in person and 1 commissioner present virtually. Diversity, character, and harmony best describe the spirit of the architectural heritage of the city of Evanston. Nestled among Evanston tree-lined streets is a rich blend of architectural styles ranging from early vernacular frame buildings to more formal classical and Renaissance revival styles to the 20th century lines of the Prairie School. In order to protect the fabric of our architectural heritage, the Preservation Commission reviews projects relating to structures deemed to be contributing to historic districts, as well as proposed new construction within historic districts and proposed demolition of contributing structures within historic districts. The Preservation Ordinance empowers this body to safeguard our city's historic and cultural heritage and to oversee and administer our community's historic preservation program. The Commission is tasked with identifying and preserving historic, cultural, and architectural resources. And so before we start, may I have a motion to accept Commissioner Matthew Johnson to join the meeting virtually?
I move that we accept Commissioner Johnson remotely.
All right, is there a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right, so now we have that handled. And we can move now on to public comment for anything listed under new discussion or any other items. Is there anyone here? You can come up to the podium and you can sign in, please.
Good evening. I'm here just to deliver some written comments on the proposed landmarking of the Willard School that was taken up at the meeting last week. I was not aware of that meeting. I'm not aware of what discussion happened in the room. I only know what was reported in the news article, so I was hoping to supplement that record a bit with some of the research that I've been looking into myself and that many others have. So I come just to request that the Commission investigate and consider the full history of the Willard site, school building, and surrounding community in preparing its report and decision on whether and how to landmark the school, given that Willard was constructed in 1922 and opened in 1924 during a period of Evanston's and our country's history in which the foundation of segregated schools and exclusionary zoning was laid. The basis for this request consists of evidence that the early establishment of the Willard School community was connected to the forced relocation of Black residents and of their homes from the area around Willard to the Fifth Ward, as well as evidence indicating that the planning, site acquisition, and construction of the school may itself have been directly involved in displacement of Black residents. And then I go on to say much has been said by the applicant and the other proponents of the proposal about the architect, building style, and features, and positive characteristics of the neighborhood surrounding Willard. However, notably missing from this account is mention of the more troubling aspects of Evanston's history in the 1920s and 30s, when Willard was built and the community around it largely established in its current form and character. This submission is despite an extensive amount of work done on this topic leading up to and in support of Evanston's reparation policy. And then I go on to describe some of the work that was been done by leaders who have been seeking to preserve and educate people about the Black history of Evanston, many of whom I have since spoken to. My full comments identify, in particular, the property at 2715 Hurd that was owned by the grandfather of Mr. Carlos Sutton, who I spoke to this morning. It was recently identified as a place where the Sutton family was told they could keep the house but not the land several years after Willard was built. And so they moved the house physically from that site on Hurd to the Fifth Ward, where it was never the same again. The property was recently bought by somebody who was deeply disturbed by this history, and there's plans for a memorial to be made on that site. I understand from Mr. Sutton and from Larice Bell at the Shorefront Legacy Center that Mr. Sutton's story is not unique, that there were multiple other residents who were immediate neighbors of Willard who were also forcibly displaced from their homes and their neighborhood at the time. And I found some additional history that indicates there were quite a few Black residents who lived in that portion of Northwest Evanston prior to the establishment of Willard School, including possibly a number of them on Thayer Street in particular. Some of the structures still seem to exist on Thayer Street, so interesting, it might be worth considering landmarking some of those. There's a 900 square foot house on Thayer Street, which is otherwise surrounded by very large, very luxurious homes. As far as I can tell, it was occupied by a Black family in 1922, according to the Directory of Evanston, that began placing C's after people's names in the directory for colored. So you can identify addresses and the race of people from the directory itself. So anyway, this is just scratching the surface. There's quite a bit here. I will say I've also looked into the deed history on the Lincolnwood property after there was a threat of litigation by one of the immediate neighbors. I'm happy to provide the letter that I sent to the school board that details some of the history around the establishment of Lincolnwood. That dates to about 1910, 1911, so roughly a decade and a half before Willard. But again, I think this is all really important history. We can't honor buildings without honoring what was happening around those buildings and why those buildings came to be in the first place and who they were meant to serve. So thank you. I'll hand this over, and I plan to email it to the board, to the commission as well.
All right. You can give it. Thank you.
Previously neighbors. Oh, I live at the corner of Grant and
So thank you. And we have a upcoming hearing for Lincolnwood. So if you want to send that, we haven't scheduled it yet, but it will be publicly noticed. So if you can send that information to us, and then we'll take that into account for both. Thank you. All right, so next on the agenda, we have a presentation on the water treatment plant. Mr. King, are you ready to present?
Good evening, Chair Klein, members of the commission, Darrell King, Water Production Bureau Chief. We have I'm here to talk about a security fence and gate project.
One minute. Sorry, we're going to hold public comment for the 111 Burnham before the case. So right now we're hearing from Mr. King, and then when we have that case, we'll then call for public comment. All right, did you have public comment?
Linda, what topic is your public comment related to? Do you want to step up? And if it's not related to new business, you can present it now. Public comment listed under new business on the agenda. Linda, please come up and describe what you intend to speak to on the agenda. So we'll take public comment for items listed as new business immediately before the applicant's presentation for new business. That's in accordance with the rules and procedures for the commission. Public comment listed on the agenda first is for any other topic. So somebody that, for example, would want to give comment related to Willard School could present that and not have to sit through an entire meeting before doing so. And then your comment would be directly related to the case that would be presented immediately after, if that makes sense. Correct. All right, Darrell.
Am I advancing this or are you doing it? Okay, make sure I do. Okay, so thanks everybody for allowing me to come before you. We have a project at the water utility to upgrade the security fence and gate at 3 locations. The water plant here is what's pictured here. I believe that's the landmark location. but we have 2 satellite locations. I don't think they are, but I'll leave that for you all to tell me if it's applicable, but I figured I would just tell you the whole story and the project that we're doing. And so just some background, our water plant can produce 108 million gallons of water per day. We average 47 million gallons per water. We supply water to 10 communities, 9 outside of Evanston. And so we serve a total population of just under 500,000. That puts us second largest utility. Of course, City of Chicago is like the largest in the world. And they have 2 plants, and so those plants are larger than ours. But after Chicago, there you have Evanston. And so I just went over that. We have a water plant, and then we have 2 booster pumping stations and 2 water storage tanks. And so as part of the 2018 America Water Infrastructure Act, or AWIA, water system serving more than 3,300 people, we had to conduct risk assessments and develop emergency response plans. And part of that, the recommendations include enhancing perimeter security, which is what this project is about, installing or upgrading access controls, and implementing physical barriers to restrict unauthorized entry. And so this whole project, outside of us just wanting to secure the property, it also has some background due to that legislation. And so in 2024, we retained T.Y. Lin to perform the design of the gates and the fencing at the water plant, the north and south standpipes, and we'll go through each one of those individually. Starting with the north standpipe, that one's located at Grosse Point Road, 2530 Grosse Point Road. That water tower or standpipe holds 7.5 million gallons of water, and it has a pump station at that location. And so currently the existing fence is 7-foot tall galvanized chain link fence. And so this is the location that I'm talking about, and the red dotted lines, that's where the existing fences and gates are located. And then we're gonna replace that with updated, more decorative security fencing gates at that location. And that's what the existing fence looks like, typical fence section at that location. This is a different view of the gate opening and the sliding mechanism of that, and you can see barbed wire, chain link fencing, 7 foot. And we're gonna replace it with more of something that looks like that, palisade style fence. There will be, we're proposing some privacy slats along that top, what is that, the north and the west portions of the fence. There will be some privacy slats there. And so it will look like the picture on the right. And so this is the south standpipe location. This location is around, what is that, Cleveland and I think Hartree on the south side of Evanston. It's a 5 million gallon standpipe, and we're doing the same thing there. That red dotted area, we'll be replacing the fencing and the gates at this location. And this is what's there existing, typical chain link fence with some privacy slats. These are just a couple pictures of the gates, the west gate and the north gate. All of that is proposed to be replaced. And again, the same palisade style fencing, and there will be some privacy slats on certain portions of the fence. This one here is more to block lights and dust. We get complaints from the community around that area because we're in and out of that sometimes even 3 in the morning, all hours of the day and night. If there's like a water main break or something, we have to access this location. And so we're going to add that just to help with dust control and lights and things of that nature. And so this is the water plant location, which I know this one's a landmark. The green fencing or the green lines are indicating where the fencing is being proposed and replaced. The section that starts on Lincoln Street goes towards Sheridan Road and wraps around to the front of the water plant. That's a conceptual design that we're proposing. Currently, there's no fencing there. The rest of the fencing that you see, I don't see it. So the rest of the fencing that's shown on there is existing, and we're just replacing it. But that fencing along Lincoln going up towards Sheridan Road, that would be new. And this is the typical, the north fence. It has some privacy slats, chain link. The east fence facing the lake. Currently at the top, that's the top of one of our settling basins. That's existing palisade style fence, and it'll look similar to that. We'll replace the gate there at the lower elevation, and the pedestrian gate that'll be replaced as well. Chain link with barbed wire is the existing. The south entrance along Lincoln Street, all of that's going to get replaced. And again, palisade style fencing. So it'll be decorative. It'll look a lot better. It'll be more secure. Certain parts of the fencing gates will be impact resistant as well. I won't point that out, but that'll be something that's being designed and incorporated into this project. Not just at the water plant, but at the other two locations as well. And the gates, we're looking at 3 different styles: a vertical swing gate and a pivot gate. And again, all of them will be decorative style just to enhance the appearance of that location. And so the design, it was conceptual. 9 months, that has been completed. We're looking at the total duration, design, construction of the fence is 21 months. We're currently at the 30% design stage. 60% is anticipated to be completed in February 2026. And the current contract end date is July 9th, 2027. So we wanted to bring this while we were only at the 30% phase and get you all's opinions about it. And any questions?
Go ahead.
Sorry, what's the height of the new fence versus the old fence? Is it comparable?
So the new fence at the water plant will be 8 feet. And then at the north standpipe, that will be 8 feet. Right now, we're looking at the south standpipe location to see if we can potentially get a variance to make that one 10 to 12 feet to help with the dust as well as the lights in that area.
So 8 feet is what it is today? The chain link is 8?
So the chain link is 7 feet.
Okay.
We're going to raise it up to 8 feet at the water plant and at the north standpipe. And then at the south standpipe, part of it will be 8 feet. And then there'll be certain parts that face the homes will be either, we're hoping we can get that to 10 or 12 feet. And it'll have the privacy slats to block dust and light. The gates won't have privacy slats because we still want to be able, if there was ever an incident, we want the authorities to be able to still have a visual inside the property. And there's surveillance cameras there as well, but we don't want to just completely block everything.
I know, I couldn't tell for sure. Do the decorative fence, some of it curved at the top and some was straight? Which is it, does it differ by site or is it all the same?
It differs. The pictures that I showed you show two different types. Some of them have the curved spikes.
Yeah.
And one of them did not have. The ones with that I believe showed with the privacy slats, those didn't have the curved spikes. So that'll be something that we finalize as part of, the final design as we move further into it. The existing palisade style fencing at the water plant that's on top of the settling basins, those have the spikes.
All right, any other questions? All right, I think it's a pretty straightforward project with fencing. I appreciate that it's actually improving the appearance. I guess gives a more cohesive look, with the palisade fence instead of a chain link fence, especially when you have the house that's right next door on Sheridan. So thank you for coming. I think we have no other comments with that. We just thank you for coming and presenting, and that's it, I think. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for having me. Have a good evening.
All right. So now we're going to be moving into new business. Next item on the agenda is approval of the 2026 meeting dates. Did you have anything to say? Or?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is all the meetings are on the second Tuesday except for, I think, the July and the January meetings potentially. So as a commission, I think especially for the January meeting, you just need to make a decision which date you prefer, the 13th or the 20th, I think were the options.
Can we have that discussion now, or?
You can have it now.
We also have
no,
to-
you should have it now because you have to
Before we
adopt
approve?
the.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, so I guess the reason is typically we have it the second Tuesday, but because of the holiday and approving, going through applications, that's why it's scheduled for the 20th. We also have on the January 20th tentatively scheduled the landmark hearing for Lincolnwood School, and that's the last day that we can have. It's 90 days after the submission of the nomination, and so I'm just I think it would be better to not wait until the 90th day because, anything can happen out of our control, and, if we miss that meeting date, then we can't move forward on that nomination. So that's why I suggested potentially holding it on the 13th, the landmark hearing, but it's up to you all what you all think.
I'm fine with either one. I think it makes sense to move it up.
I mean, to move
The 13th.
for the landmark hearing and then have the regular meeting on the 20th.
Yeah, I can do either. I mean, so if you miss the deadline for that 90 days, if we did have it on the 20th and for some reason something did come up, what happens to that application?
It just fails.
Oh, and then then we bring it back the next month, or?
The way the code's actually structured is if it's not heard or if the commission doesn't make a recommendation within 70 days after, if it is heard, either one of those, it can't be renominated for another 2 years.
Oh,
There's like a penalty involved.
Yeah, so I think we should probably move it up for the Lincolnwood.
I mean, because just historically, over the last couple years, the city has canceled meetings. And I think it's just prudent that we would give a little week buffer. So in that case, are you all okay with approving the landmark hearing on the 13th and the regular meeting on the 20th?
Yes.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve this annual schedule? Unless anyone else has any other comments. You want to make a motion?
Okay, I make a motion to approve the 2026 meeting schedule with the Lincolnwood meeting on the January 13th, and then the regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday, January 20th. Is that-
Is there a second? Second? All right.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, so the meeting schedule has been approved. Oh, sorry, was that, to commit, is that, oh, he's voting aye. Do we have to do a roll
I
call?
voted aye. Can you hear me?
Sorry, do we have to do a roll?
We can,
call
Matthew.
If it's with
I
Matthew?
voted aye.
I don't know, we could.
I mean-
Maybe for something else, but not this.
Sure, okay.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, your vote is recorded, thank you. All right. So, I will open the public hearing for 25 Pres 0134 and ask staff to read it into the record.
Case number 25 PRES 0134, 111 Burnham Place in the Lakeshore Historic District. The commission shall review the proposal for demolition and new construction against the identified applicable standards, and staff will provide a professional opinion upon request.
All right. So now, is there anyone here for public comment for this case? Please come forward. I don't know how I don't have a list, so please just come forward and.
Yeah, just one at a time, and then just write your name before you leave, and then also let us know your name before you talk. Do you have time limits, Carl?
Should we keep what?
3 minutes?
3 minutes. Keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nina Kadecki. I live next door to 111 Burnham at 125 Burnham. And I've just taken a quick glance at the plans from the packet that was posted online. And I just wanted to say that I was happy with what I saw because it's a pretty large parcel. I think it's 4/10 of an acre, which would allow you to build a pretty big house square footage wise. And I feel like the house that Paulo and Diane have proposed is fairly modest in size and appropriate with its neighbors. And I also feel like it makes the most of the site. And so I just wanted to say I'd be glad to have a house like that next door.
Right.
Hello, my name is Joan Guitart. I'm the neighbor of Paulo and Diana north, so just exactly the lot next to it. And I am thrilled to have them as neighbors. I know them, I know their family, and I know they're wonderful people. My only concern is that I want to make sure they are following the rules in terms of like distance from, I'm totally fine with the new construction there, totally supportive of it, but, we have like an outdoor shower right next to their lot, and we have a hot tub next to their lot, and I want to make sure, I have no idea of what the distance and how it's going to look, and I would like to make sure they respect our property in a way, But again, totally supportive of what they are coming up with. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Come on up, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jean Sylvester. I am an architectural historian and a historic preservation consultant. I am here to speak about the existing Burnham-designed building. I don't think anyone on this commission needs any introduction to Daniel Burnham. I'm confident that you all understand the scope of his impact in the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, the country, and at least for planning purposes, internationally also. The fact that, that Mr. Burnham lived and loved the city of Evanston, I think, is particularly special. I think the fact that this building was designed by him for himself and for his family is also very special, and the fact that it is seemingly, I have not visited, but seemingly, according to the History Center's report, relatively intact is frankly extraordinary. I have done a lot of research on Daniel Burnham. I wrote the Historic American Building Survey report for the Joliet Public Library, which was also a unique building, only one of 3 purpose-built libraries that Burnham designed. The fact that this is a personal building that he designed, I believe, is also unique. In terms of Chicago architectural history, there is no one bigger than Daniel Burnham, as I'm sure you all understand. So it is my hope that the commission works with the owner to come up with a creative solution to satisfy their needs and retain this unquestionably historically and architecturally significant building. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you. Ms. Damachek, did you want to provide comment for this case, right?
Yes, my name is Linda Damashek, and I'm here to refer to 111 Burnham Place and to oppose the demolition of the tea house on the property. As Daniel Burnham is a nationally known architect and planner, he organized the Columbian Exposition of 1893, basically a World's Fair. He was instrumental in the Chicago Plan of 1909, which basically saved the lakefront for all of Chicagoans. He's a very important guy. The Evanston History Center has a Burnham tour, which basically circumvents the entire perimeter of what would have been his estate. And the tea house is pointed out as part of the tour. And I have to say, you know, it's really sad that his original home was demolished, but just having the tea house there kind of gives you a sense of place of the whole block and of the whole Burnham estate. Burnham is so significant that I know of an Evanston resident who has proposed making a Burnham museum. So basically, the Burnham Tea House should not be allowed to be demolished because of its extreme importance to Evanston's history, and it's the only remaining building from Burnham's estate. So please take that under consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else here for, okay.
Hi, my name is Charles Portis. I live at 1212 Lakeshore Boulevard. We built that house about 16 years ago. We appeared before this committee in a different building, had a great experience. We put solar panels on our property in 2020, appeared before the committee, had a great experience. I think the design is great, and I appreciate the effort that's gone into it. I appreciate the green touches. The reason I'm here, and it's not pleasant, but I appreciate you're hearing me out. There was a project done recently in the neighborhood where it was a large, some new construction, and the people that built the project did not follow the R rules for the R2 district to have, I believe it's 55% of your land be pervious. If you're wealthy in some communities, you can do stuff and get away with it with no consequences. That's happened in our neighborhood. It's distressing to me because obviously if one person paves too much, it's not going to flood the system, but it's not right. And I just asked Paolo and your architect, please follow the rules. These are important, and there's no the project I'm referring to sent in drawings saying they were going to comply. They were non-compliant. I mentioned it to, I think, the appropriate person in the staff of Evanston. Nothing happened. So please follow the rules. Your house is beautiful. Thank you for letting me speak that.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight to provide comment? If not, do you want to read the letter from Landmarks Illinois into the record?
Yeah, I have two comments that were submitted in a time period that I don't think the commission members probably read them. The first I'll read is from Landmarks Illinois. It's signed by their advocacy manager, Kendra Parson. Commissioners, Landmarks Illinois requests your consideration of our comments regarding plans to demolish the existing residence at 111 Burnham Place within the Lakeshore Historic District and replace it with a new residence. The property is sited within the footprint of Daniel Burnham's former estate in Evanston, one of Chicago's area's most prominent architects and planners. Burnham moved his family to a lakefront estate in Evanston in 1886. Burnham's sons, Daniel Jr. and Hubert, were raised in this home, went on to design the plan of Evanston in 1917. The Burnham residence was demolished in 1938 and the land subdivided to build new residences. We have reviewed the application materials available online, as well as the public comments submitted by Chris Hartzell of the Evanston History Center. The materials submitted by the Evanston History Center, including photographs from the Ryerson and Burnham Art and Architecture Archives at the Art Institute of Chicago, are compelling evidence that the eastern portion of the existing building is in fact an extant outbuilding from the Burnham estate designed by Burnham himself in 1909. Given this new information, we encourage the Commission to delay a vote on this matter and work with the owners and their architect to determine whether the eastern portion of the existing residence can be incorporated into their design plans. And I have a second comment from a resident, John Story Williamson, at 864 Sheridan Road. Said, "Good evening, Commissioners. My name is John Story Williamson. I've lived in this neighborhood for more than 30 years, and throughout that time, I've admired what remains of the historic Burnham estate, including the small structure long known to the family as the Burnham Tea House. The documentation submitted by the History Center demonstrates that this is not an ordinary outbuilding. The 1909 building permit clearly names Daniel Burnham as the architect, and the associated photographs and family records show that this was a designed retreat on his lakefront property, very likely the last structure he created before his death and one shaped by his work on the Japanese Ho-O-Den and his travels to East Asia. Given this evidence, I believe demolition would be contrary to the intent of the preservation ordinance. The structure embodies the history of the Lakeshore Historic District, and its proportions, siting, and relationship to the lake cannot be reproduced without great difficulty or loss of authenticity. I urge the Commission to require genuine exploration of adaptive use, stabilization, and integration of the tea house into future designs consistent with the demolition standards before the Commission's mandate. I hope the Commission will take a more active role in shaping thoughtful, context-sensitive design within the district. This site is an opportunity to demonstrate that preservation and high-quality new architecture need not be in conflict. Thank you for your consideration."
All right, that ends public comment. And so for this particular case, which involves both the proposed demolition and new construction, may I request that the applicant first present their proposal to demolish the property at 111 Burnham and provide any evidence and testimony that support the standards for demolition, and then we can have the commission review that for the standards for demolition, and then we can determine if that meets the standards for determination, and then we can move to new construction and have you present that. It's just a way to help discussion, and so you can come up and present now, please.
Very good. Sign in here, I take it. All right, good evening. And the forward is this, or?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I think
Let's see if I can, nope.
you might have it turn, it might be backwards. Flip it around.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Very good. Well, just as an introduction, my name is Dan Wheeler, principal of Wheeler Kearns Architects, and I'm joined by Carrie Frank as well as Joy Meek from our office. Wheeler Kearns is a 18-person firm in Chicago that it was instituted in 1987. And we've been thrilled to work with the felons, as well as the committee, the commission, and in particular CADE. That's been very helpful in terms. Can everyone hear me? Am I speaking clearly enough for everyone? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. So again, we appreciate the opportunity to present an observation, a contextual idea through our presentation. We as architects understand who Daniel Burnham is, and we also appreciate the new information that was gotten in the last several days, or we were made apprised of it, that this is Daniel Burnham's. There was a date of 1907 that the project was built, and that is something that was a mystery to us. We referred to the Grinecki report, which you all well know, and it's always been puzzling to us. So what I'd like to do is give you a step-by-step in terms of understanding our understanding of the building's history. So our proposal is to retain the existing Burnham wall that was built roughly about 1908, 1909. That wall, which is obviously important, ran the entire, let's see. I wish I had an overall Sanborn map right up here. So this wall runs from Burnham Place all the way up to Dempster, and it ran back further onto the property to the west from where it is currently stated. Let's see, this is the felons. They've been Evanstonians for some time, and they also are interested in architecture. We are also interested in architecture and history. This is an example of projects that Wheeler Kearns has been involved in through the years. I might also note that we've had our office in the Fisher Building, which is a Daniel Burnham building, for over 25 years, so there's no mystery of who Daniel Burnham is. So notably on the top, which I don't know whether is there a red marker on this? No. On the top, we've been involved in restoring a Pond and Pond building on Astor Street. We did the last Louis Sullivan building on Lincoln Avenue, the Krause Music Store. On the lower portion, we've done the Old Town School of Folk Music. There is a project in Old Town, the Eugenie House, directly to the right of that, which is in a landmark district. And we built buildings in landmark districts in Wicker Park, the middle on the left. And then we just finished the Looking Glass, which is in the water tower structure on Michigan Avenue. So we don't enter into our work lightly. We look at what the conditions are and then try to find the best way to land new work within that context. Our job is to make our clients happy, but more importantly, the community happy. So this is our reading of the Lakeshore district. We looked through that report. We've looked at every one of the contributing properties as well as the landmark properties. And on this map, we are also seeing where the felons currently live and the parcel that they have purchased within the old Daniel Burnham parcel. We have looked through the standards, and I'll go through some of this more, particularly, Carl, for the criteria for demolition prior to getting into the design. But I think it would be important for us to kind of walk you through the history of the parcel through Sanborn maps, and then to introduce some of the images that are recently found at the Art Institute. So the Sanborn map of 1899 describes the site in that red square. There's nothing there. There's no wall there. And there is, to the left of that, the Burnham estate, which was the project that, or the building that Daniel Burnham bought, from our understanding. And they own that entire parcel from Devon down to what became Burnham Place. So this is really the history. The bottom is 1899, so we could presume that there was a house that was to the left, that was the Burnhams. The Burnhams had that broad estate. And somewhere, in these drawings were done prior to the information that we will introduce tonight, a retaining wall that bounded Burnham Place, the eastern facade, as well as the north along Devon, or Dempster, and directly to the north. That was presuming that there was going to be a relocation of a roadway, as we understand it, to Lake Michigan to the right. Lake Michigan ran directly up to this property prior to the infill of landscape and the subsequent park that took place. So this wall is 2 foot thick, it's concrete, it's there, and we're not touching it. We want to retain it. You will notice that the walls do extend further to the west than they currently do. And so that was done, that they were clipped off and modified in the subsequent phase when they did the parcelization of the property. You will see that there is a dotted line that was on the upper level, which locates what is the Burnham room that was constructed. That room was meant to be a shelter house. It was called a shelter house, but it was unimproved with any mechanical systems, plumbing, bathrooms, things like that. So it's basically and in the Sanborn maps, it calls it a cemented shed. It's a frame structure that was built on top of the fill that was added. The Art Institute does have in their voluminous Burnham archive documents that document when the building was built. It was in 1909. These documents say that Daniel Burnham was the architect. Obviously, Burnham had a substantial office, and so we don't know for sure whether he penned this, but obviously he directed it because he was this was part of his estate. And they were signed by the builder, who was a mason, although it's ironic that there's no masonry on the house other than potentially the foundation. The house is frame and it's stuccoed. It has a plaster or stucco structure to that. These are really pertinent. These, I don't think any architect would disagree that these are incredibly powerful images. And it does describe the location of the room to the west, or to the east, which is the shelter room that was built. But I think it's noteworthy to say that when the building's retaining wall was built, the wall ran the entire breadth of the block. There was a stairway that is on the lower left that ascends up to that terrace, and that terrace spanned the entire breadth of the parcel. I'm just going to read. Daniel Burnham, as we all know, wrote, he was quoted and these are quotes from him. There's some debate of whether these were from him or whether they were cobbled together from a couple different interchange that he had, but the ones that we know: make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood, and probably themselves will not be realized. Make big plans. Aim high in hope and work, remembering that a noble logical diagram once recorded will never die, but long after we are gone, be a living thing asserting itself with ever-growing insistency. I think what our opinion has been is that while this was the big plan that Burnham had, a broad terrace that spanned from road to road, had a articulated balustrade facing over a lake that was directly across the road, and serviced or supported by a structure that it was a shelter house with no improvements. And notably, as you can see, that shelter house did have a clay tile, a decorative clay tile roof within it. And also, please note, it is detached. It is a pavilion within a broader landscape. The landscape, the terrace was broad. It was broader because of and it's been cut back in the subsequent subdivisions. On the lower right is how you would ascend or find this terrace. You would walk up through a forest or a garden space, and so the transition from the original house up to this broad vista was really impressive. And we as architects and so forth, if this was still here, my God, you would just want it to always be there. Sadly, over the time, there has been things that have occurred on this site that have hampered the reading that Burnham instilled in these images to a point where it's hard to discern other than the reaction that, yes, Burnham was involved. Please note that the building is frame, and it's on grade, so that rarely do you put a frame house directly at grade. There's a shallow foundation or a shallow crawl, wood frame, plaster ceiling, and currently the roof is no longer clay tile, it's asphalt shingles. And that was approved from a permit several years ago. But you can see that there was even trees to the right-hand side, and if you make out the photographs, if we were to enlarge those, the tea house, which we call the tea house, is actually a tea party off to the right-hand side. In the documents that was submitted by the History Center, they also show an invitation to a terrace event, an event that took place on the terrace, not necessarily within the building itself, but the building would provide some shelter if there was a wind or rain. So I think the importance for us is to understand that, yes, this building used to be a beautiful building. It was detached, it was a pavilion, and it has been compromised over the years. Let's see. So this is the Sanborn of 1920. It arrives. It is located in that location on the right. It's yellow, which means that it is frame versus the masonry buildings being represented as the masonry, or the masonry buildings being maroon. And in 1938, this parcel was sold by the family of, we would assume, and parceled off and divided it. And in 1948, a building was built. This is 1950, which is describing the building's addition, which connected a one-car house to that freestanding building, and it was parceled off to a northern building that was built to the north. But again, one of the things about this building is that if you imagine it when it was first built, the view to the north, to the lake, and to the east was completely unobstructed. And in the current condition, it is bounded by the demising wall, the fence, the house to the north, and it's now encumbered by the addition of the additional building that was connected to that freestanding structure. This is the building as it is intact right now, which has a two-story masonry building to the left, and then there is a link that goes to the 19 by 30 by 11 foot high room, which was the Burnham room. Please note that the building was non-heated. There was no tempering of it. There was no utilities to it. And so the vents that are evident within the building itself, which we'll get to in a moment, are there for the ventilation of the crawl space. This is the house directly to the north. This was, again, there was no rear yard setbacks at the time. They are now, and we are playing by the rules, but there was no rear yard setbacks, so that the building to the north was able to rotate and face directly out to the lake, which obviously is a benefit to that vista. But it also increases or impedes in the breadth of space between what was the broad view and vista from the shelter house, and now this building is creeping in on that. These are some adjacent buildings, the contextual things that we studied, and we also looked at the contributing context within the district. So that there are noteworthy buildings of a different vocabulary than what is currently there. And as I noted, the existing retaining walls are being left intact. And so while the building might be pointed out, and I'm not diminishing the importance of telling a story, but that when you are on the public way, on the public sidewalks, the house itself, the Burnham Pavilion, is really not that evident. The thing that you really encounter is a retaining wall. This is the condition of the existing building. The addition to the upper left, showing the one-car garage, which again, per this code, is not still allowed. There is masonry. It's a two-story building, and then it rises up, but then it steps back down to the existing shelter house. Please note that while not only was the roof clay tiles removed, but also all of the windows were removed. So there's no ventilation in the house, and hasn't been for probably 20 years, other than the doorways. There is a link that links the building. The middle upper shows the link of masonry that went up and engaged with, in an uncomfortable situation, to the existing building. The building, the bones, the proportion, and so forth, while they are interesting and noteworthy in terms of what they are, those proportions and rooms, it's essentially a framed garage, an open space that could be replaced quite readily given detailed documentation of it. On the lower portion, you can see the interior of the shelter house on the lower left. The fireplace is existent and is dominant within that center room. And if you've ever tried to use a house where you've got a 19 by 30 foot room and try to make it multifunction, because that's a big room, you will have some difficulty in terms of accommodating it. The middle lower portion shows the buildings. That is actually the opening between the link that is masonry into the shelter room, and that there's a greenhouse kind of component to it, or a landscape, And then the lower right describes the steps that go down from the existing additional house stepping down. You will note that the existing house is just double hung windows. It's a kind of, some have shutters, some do not, while the Burnham did not. The roof tiles might have been taken off when they built the addition to try to make the roof lines give it a similarity between the two. So these are the standards for the demolition, which we put together for the commission so that they have read through these. I don't know if you want me to read through them. Let's see, as the commission, let's see, I'll need to walk up to to read them. My eyesight is a little bit, old, but, okay.
There is also a microphone, I think, on the table, if you need to move and talk.
Nope. Oh, there it is. Okay. Very good. So there are standards for the review of demolitions within this commission, and so I'll just run through these one by one. Number one, whether the property, structure, object is of such historic, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance that its demolition would be detrimental to the public understanding contrary to the general welfare of the people of the city and the state. We noted here before the knowledge of exactly what Burnham is, but we're looking at this in context of the house as it exists, which is an amalgam of an existing 1948 building attached to this Burnham room, the shelter house. The home is not of any coherent architectural style and has limited or conflicting evidence of historical significance, albeit we now know that Burnham was involved in the shelter house and the terrace, mind you. The existing raised property and perimeter wall, which have significant, will be retained. So again, our intent is to maintain the things that still have not been damaged from a reading point of view. Number two, whether the property, structure, or object relates to the distinctive historic, cultural, or architectural, or archaeological character of the district as a whole should be preserved for the benefit of the people of the city and the state. The home itself does not have any distinctive characteristics that relate to the neighboring context. That is, distinctive characteristics. Its major contribution to the character of the district is the perimeter wall, which is proposed to be retained. Number three, whether the demolition of the property, structure, or object would be contrary to the purpose and intent of the chapter and to the objectives of the historic preservation for the applicable district. Since this house is not architecturally significant or contributing to the context of the beauty of this district, constructing a new architecturally significant home while maintaining the contributing walls would be more in line with the objectives of the district. Number four, whether the property, structure, we good? Okay. Number four, whether the property, structure, or object is of such old, unusual, or distinctive design, texture, or material that it could not be reproduced without great difficulty or expense. The home is a simple masonry, and this is a mistake on our part. This is, well, the addition is masonry. The shelter house is frame, so it's a mixed bag of stuff. The house is simple masonry with limited architectural detail. that does not tie it to a particular architectural style. Its addition in the 1950s is a weak imitation of the massing of the original building that distorts the proportions of the original. Neither are architecturally or significant enough to replicate. So I will say that the simple masonry was found to be a frame building upon our research. Number 5, whether the property structure or object is of such physical condition that it represents a danger or imminent hazard to persons or property on that retention, remediation, or repair are not physically possible or require great difficulty and or expense. While the structure does show some significant settlement issues, which again are debatable, but there has been, because of the fill and over time, there is evidence of settling. Let's see, and it has fallen into disrepair. It is not hazardous or eminently dangerous. To bring the existing structure to livable conditions and to modern code, which entail the energy code and whatnot, natural ventilation, however, would require great expense. And number 6, except in cases where the owner has no plans for a period of up to 5 years to replace an existing landmark or property, structure, or object in the district, no certificate of appropriateness shall be issued until plans for a replacement structure or object have been reviewed and approved by the commission. And then the following slides are then proposing our proposed replacement of this property. And I don't know whether you want me to show the rest of the presentation or wait now.
I think if we could pause right now,
Yeah.
just let the commission discuss the standards that you just presented, that would be.
Okay, and I'm happy to answer. Again, this is
And then
a
we can also-
two-way street, so if you have questions.
We can also ask questions right now of you and propose to what he just presented. So does anyone have questions? Or
So I just have a question about timing. It sounds like the who the architect wasn't something that you didn't know originally. What was the timing for when that became something that you knew about?
Well, we knew that it was part of the Burnham estate. We had heard hearsay that this was the Burnham tea house, but it was really never proved, and we thought that the previous study that had been done, the Gronecki study, would have brought this to light, that this, in fact, was the Burnham. And so we certainly want to commend and appreciate what the History Center has done to bring this to light. We were scratching our heads, and actually we love seeing the photographs of what was there. I mean, it was incredible. But over the period of time, the vision, the broad vision of Burnham, beyond designing a building to reflect on that landscape, that's where we. But it was probably in the last 3 days or whatever. Kate sent the report from the group. I went to Burnham Library over the weekend, and also found online these images.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Well, I guess the follow-up question is, what was your reaction to that new information?
Well, it answered our curiosity in terms of when the building was built. In our slide, we said it was 1910, ? And 1909, we're not far off. I would note that Burnham, the permit documents were in May of, I think April or May of 1909. One would imagine that the construction of this would have been done that season. It's a simple building. It's a wood frame house that's covered in stucco. So we would have a untempered building that would be usable, let's say in the summer of 2000 or 1910 and 1911. Daniel Burnham died. He was diabetic, and he died in Berlin in June of 1912. Thank you. So the period of time that Daniel Burnham actually had use of this site, his broad terrace that then has a shelter house to it, was 2 years. Now the family might have had that between then and when they sold it off to be subdivided. So again, I have no question now that we understand what the Burnham vision was and why it's there, and hopefully this is helpful to you as well in terms of the discussion. But I would say that the existent condition of the building being attached, windows being replaced, having the roof, which again in the report made comment of in terms of, yes, the tile roof was emblematic of a Asian trip and so forth. Now that is no longer existent. So really what you have for your existing fabric, which again in our Pond and Pond building, it was like, how do we save and relocate or move a stairway? What is the original fabric? That original fabric on this building is not the windows, it's not the roof, it's basically some wood framing, let's say a 10 and 12 roof, sheeted maybe with plywood at this point, and then it's stuccoed over or plastered over the surfaces. We don't know the condition of the sill plates because it's literally at grade. There's no flashing that we could find in terms of our photography. So it's a utilitarian structure that was there as a visual complement to the terrace that is there. It was not meant to be a house per se. And so the question for us is whether maintaining let's say a utilitarian structure in its place in a compromised siting condition where the broad facing north, which it used to do, is now facing the neighbor to the north and the neighbor to the north. Unbeknownst to Burnham, they subdivided it, and now you have a house that's at a bias, a 45-degree bias, very close to the property line. And then the repair of, all the issues you find within an existing building. So
west side.
And yes, the west side, the wall has been removed. I mean, it was blown out and the other thing that I might note, just as an aside, is that the existing addition is relative. I mean, it's very modest. It's a one-car garage and the stair goes up. You still have to step down because the terrace is roughly 6 feet above grade. And that stepping down is something architecturally that was a problem for them when they built it in 48. And it would obviously be also an issue in terms of how we could replicate and tie in a building or a room like that to a house that needs to be accessible because of the client's goals for being a fully accessible building for their future use as they age in place. So all of these things kind of, I'd love to tell you what our intent is for the site, because we have big and bold plans, and we are respectful of situating it within this new context, understanding that the existing context has really hampered the benefit that the building, if this building was a freestanding structure that could be in the middle of a park, giving breadth to that and supporting it, albeit it's not going to have a bathroom or bathrooms or utilities and so forth. If you say I'm going to maintain it, that might be a plausible thing. But on this site, it's not, in our opinion, it's not conducive. It's not doing its job on this site in any way that Burnham would have imagined. So if Burnham was sitting here in this room right now, he would say, well, why are you saving it? So that's a question for you. He might say, well, save it, maybe rebuild it in the proportion and the scale. It's just a frame building. You could plaster it and so forth. If you move this building, it's going to fall apart, right? It's just lath and plaster, and it's going to, just decompose. So again, anyway, that's a long-winded answer, sorry.
All right, do you have any other questions for this?
So the question was, does the information that it was designed by Burnham that you didn't have when you began? I guess the short answer is no. It doesn't. It's not. You're not saying, well, hold on. We didn't know it was Burnham. We're going to go back and change things. You're saying it doesn't change the context, and the context is the problem.
Yeah.
Like the neighbor to the north and it's the context is compromised the building, and so the fact that it's a Burnham does not change anything.
No, we're fully on board that Burnham or Burnham's office designed this building on that site. But we have no question now. That was a question that we had, is like, well, there's this building here, it's hearsay, but we don't know. I mean, the Gronecki report stated who the architect for the addition was, but, 30 years later, or if it was accessible, or if there was a glimmer that, oh my God, there's Burnham, that probably would have bubbled up. That was our mistaken opinion that, gee whiz, we don't know. There's no architectural drawings of this structure. Again, it's pretty darn simple we could literally document exactly everything that we could do there, so there'd be a record of what was built that then could be used in the future at some point for Evanston to kind of bring this back. But it's not the right, in our opinion, it is not the right building on this site. If we were to build an addition that would meet the felon's goals of not a accessible house, there would still be a weird linkage to an unaccessible garden pavilion on that parcel.
Okay. Do you have any other questions for the? So you talked about the condition of the. Sorry. You talked about the condition of the shelter,
Yeah.
that it's frame, lath, and stucco.
Yeah.
The other is masonry that's painted, right? And so, what is the condition of that?
If
addition?
I'd be allowed to show a plan of the existing house, I might be able to illustrate what that
Sure.
would be. Thank you. Let's see. Okay, so these are comparative plans of what is existing right now. On the left-hand side, you will see, I can walk over here. Well, actually, maybe I'll take this too. So if you look on the left-hand side, this is an existing building. It's relatively modest. It has a bedroom on the ground floor. Actually, this is a den, one-car garage, and mechanical, and a stairway that runs up to the middle. And then it steps down to a unenclosed, or it's enclosed, but it's uninsulated masonry addition that links into the shelter house. There's doorways on both of these, and from what we understand, the original owner or the recent owner here basically just used this and only opened this up during the temperate months. There's fin tube radiation that gives some modicum of heat within the living space, but this is uninsulated currently, and then this is insulated. There's a bedroom, den, and then a kitchen in that location. There are steps here that, again, from the felon's point of view, are problematic because they need to be able to access all aspects of the property. And then the vista, which originally is facing to the north, is then, you know, the beautiful photograph of, my God, this amazing facade looking out on a fence in another building it's no longer there. It's compromised. So we're trying to be realists with this. This is the original building here, and the proposal is to build a likewise modest building, actually make it even smaller. I don't. You don't want me to get into yeah.
I mean, my question is,
Yeah.
you know, it's like this shelter house was built in what, 1909? It's
Yep.
2025 now. It's lasted all these years. You know, there's obviously been some stewardship to that. I'm just wondering, do you think that it's in such bad disrepair right now that it's not, you know, worthy of continuing to be a building? I mean, that it's going to fall down, or I mean. That's why I'm just wondering, is it's lasted all this time, as you know, and so is it really in that bad disrepair now?
There are issues with it. Any architect would walk you around and we'd show you the cracks and so forth of the settlement issues of the building. In our professional opinion, there would be expense made to take the plaster off, flash the building properly. It won't meet any energy standards because of the way that it's built. But it is, you could do some mud jacking potentially and, you know, cobble the thing together, but it is essentially, and I don't want to be derogatory here to Burnham, but it is a wood frame structure, a garage structure that is plastered with proportional windows. The windows are gone, the roof is gone, so you're really left with a very typical frame building. So we don't know whether there's enough fabric and knowledge and history to what is left to make it notable in its Burnham, quote unquote Burnham kind of signature.
Okay. Commissioner Rizzoli, do you have?
Yeah.
When's the last time someone lived in this structure?
Paolo.
Sorry, could you pass the mic to, thank you.
I believe she lived there until 2023. She died there. The neighbors probably know more than we do, but her son did say that she lived in only the new part of the house because she couldn't access the pavilion, and it wasn't, because of the stairs, all the different stairs, and because it wasn't heated and things like that. So she did live there, but lived there in a limited way.
Thank
Were there any plans for that, for the little building at all? Any architectural plans that you've seen?
Not that we've seen, and I would think that the Burnham Library or the Burnham Archive at the Art Institute, now that the History Center has located these documents. I mean, it's the photographs and the building permits are all that they have currently put together, and so I mean, it would be an easy thing to measure and document exactly what's there because, you know, it's a box with some punch windows in it.
Right.
Yep.
So it would be possible to discern the building separate from the additions that have been added. I mean, there is a existing structure within all that other stuff that's been added to it, but you don't know yet whether it's you say it's 2x4 with plaster and lat.
I would say it's probably larger than 2x4. It's probably a 2x8. We have drawings here of what is our presumption of how it was built. There is a shallow shallow crawl space. It's a wood floor. You know, you hit it and you hear it. But there's vents on the exterior, which again I could maybe go back and show you, that give the relief vents to make sure that any moisture that's down in that crawl is being able to vent out. Again, there's no ventilation for the building. Obviously, there probably was operable windows at some time, but those are now, I think they're fiberglass and they're fixed glass. And so the only way of getting ventilation into the link and into the building is to open the door. And then the roof has no, typically in a tile roof or in a roof like this, you would have venting to allow air to circulate from side to side or up through the roof, and there's no venting, e-vents and so forth. And so, again, we don't know. We don't know what the condition of that attic space is. Right now, it's kind of a sealed condition.
All right. Do you have a question or? Okay. All right. So I think we can now have the commissioners review the standards for demolition and see if this proposal of demolishing the house meets these standards. Does anyone have anything to share?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this project, and this is probably, I think, the most historic project that we've reviewed or that I've reviewed in 4 years on this commission. I've never seen this kind of documentation come forward about any project we've looked at to date. So I think that's noteworthy. I mean, anecdotal, but it's been 4 years, and we've, monthly seen quite a few projects come through here. I also just wanted to make the point that I don't think we've kind of talked about this over the years, that just because it's a more like vernacular structure or more basic doesn't make it insignificant. It's not just the grand, like, Victorians that we're talking about. I think our commission is expanding its scope on like what we consider to be important to the community and historic. So I think we need to keep that in mind. I also just want to note that I don't think we can, I feel like a little bit perfection cannot be the enemy of good. Even though the whole site, the whole block is not preserved with Burnham's like main house and his, and the tea house, doesn't mean it's not worthy of preservation in any way. Like, I think a lot has changed over the years. It doesn't mean we wouldn't be here if we thought just because things have changed, we don't preserve them anymore. I mean, we look at changes all day long on historic structures, but we still, keep in mind the like historic significance of structures. And then the last thing I want to say is I don't think, I appreciate the advocacy of the architect, and you brought up some really good points. I do appreciate that. But this is definitely never a garage, I don't think. I know you kept using that word. It was a tea house. It had a function. I think garage might not be accurate and not kind of depict what the use was. It's a little less than what it really was. So I just wanted to call that point out and say we also don't know what Burnham would think about this project today. So I don't. I think he would like to see some of his work still live on, even if it's not in its full complete form. So I don't think we can, speak to what he may or may not say.
Is that? I'm trying to tie it back to a standard.
Yeah, so for me, standard one really hits home. Like, that one was so resonant with me. I was like, so standard one, and it talks about whether the property, structure, or object is of such historic, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance that its demolition would be detrimental to the public interest and contrary to the general welfare of the people of the city and the state. And I do think this history is very interesting, and I didn't know it. And I feel like this house should be plaqued or something. There should be a plaque with the history. I mean, like, it's very, very interesting. Those pictures too. One of the commenters said something like it gives a place of history, like an anchoring. And I do think looking at those pictures and then seeing the structure, I drove by it today. I've been by it, but I made a point of going by it again. I really was like, wow, now I could like visualize the whole block in a way that I had never looked at it before. And I thought that was valuable.
Anyone down here? Do you have?
So, yeah, this is a big one. And I think there's kind of two ways to start thinking about it. One is a black and white way, which is it's Burnham, and Burnham is big, and it's significant, or it's not significant. And then the other is to think of it in as a scale, as a kind of a spectrum, where if the original house were there and the terrace were there, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? Done. It stays. And then at the other end, if somebody found a cornerstone of the original building, would we require that piece of stone, that one stone, to stay? Maybe not. So I think what I would encourage us to do as we talk about this is to think about it in the spectrum of pristine original work and something barely left. And this exists somewhere on that spectrum, and I think we need to think about it in those terms. And I will just say, for me, it's hard because the stakes are high, right? It's a really important architect. But I think it's been compromised in a way that we, as an architect, I think about this as an architect, like, what could I do with this building as an architect? It's easy if you're not an architect to say, well, just save it, figure it out later. Somebody else will find some way to use it. That's irresponsible, in my opinion. I think there has to be a credible way to put this back into life. And I will say right now, I'm not sure, given the challenges of the building on the north and the grade change and the condition of the building, for me, I'm not sure there's enough there.
So what standard do you think that it meets to warrant that demolition then?
That's a good question.
I mean, while you're reviewing that, I grew up in the 1200 block of Michigan and went by this house many times. And, you know, just being in that neighborhood, I think has it growing up, just knowing that you lived near where Burnham, where his estate was, that just loomed large. Everyone was always talking about the Burnham estate. And, you know, as a kid, I was trying to find the house because, you know, I was like, well, where's the house? And then finally went on like Linda Damashek said in public comment, I went on the tour with the Evanston History Center, and, you know, they give the tour of the entire estate, and then they actually included in that tour, they stop and they talk about the tea house, and they talk about the World's Fair. And so, you know, it is part of that collective history of our city. And I understand one commissioner is saying it would be irresponsible to you know, demand that it be preserved, but I think that just because it's a remnant, just because it's an ancillary building and it's a tea house, I don't think that diminishes its significance. What I think is that, yes, there was a 1948 edition, but actually, ironically, that 1948 edition probably preserved this tea house. And it's still with us to this day because the owner most likely knew that it was a Burnham design structure, and then sensitively, you know, let it sit on the site and then put their addition next to it. And I think that's what, you know, we review a lot of times, is we look at what is the significant feature on the site, and then we deliberate using our standards to say, how can we allow for someone to adapt a site and honor what's still significant on the site? And I think that 1948 edition did that. What I'm concerned about is that we're looking at the entire house. You know, we can potentially look at the tea house structure and the 1948 structure, and then we can apply our standards to potentially one or the other or both collectively. And maybe that would help guide our discussion potentially of reusing something and then allowing some adaptation of another part of the house. Is that so?
I'm not sure I understood. And I'm sorry.
Well, what I was just saying is that, like, I think that instead of looking at the entire house and then applying our demolition standards to that, we could look at the 1909 tea house structure and apply our standards to that, and the 1948 addition, and potentially look at that and see which one would we be okay with, or Commissioner, do you have?
I disagree because it's a structure. We have to look at the whole thing as one.
Okay.
Well, the later structure has no significance, architectural or otherwise, right? I mean, it's just like an appendage to this beautiful structure. So it'd be almost like an excavation, be almost like trying to take this new part from around, you know, the gem that's in the middle, and how potentially possible that would be. It's hard to tell because we don't know exactly what the condition of the 1909 structure is. But I think I tend to agree with you that when you said that the later structures, evidently the builders, the planners and builders showed some respect for that, for the old structure. And my guess is it's probably pretty well preserved. The walls, the floors. I don't know about the roof, how the roof would have played into with the new construction, but it's an interesting thing to think about.
So I just to like answer the question, I think you can review them separately. You could say there's parts of the building that meet the standards for demolition and parts of the building that, you know, maybe are distinctive that, you know, don't meet those standards. You know, one thing that might be helpful, Dan, is, I mean, I know that you studied using that and reusing that. It's not that you didn't look at that. I don't know if that would be helpful for the commission if you explained some of the reasons why you don't think adapting and incorporating that portion of the building.
Yeah, our knee-jerk reaction is not to tear things down just by a matter of course. We did look at taking the felons program and applying it, or, you know, locating it on the site, and we found that the addition would even more greatly contrast with the existing Burnham building, and how we would get to it with the connection between it. And yeah, so what we found, and again, we had studies for this. We, as a firm, we educate, our client educates us, you educate us, and then we educate ourselves in terms of the options. So we typically look at 4 or 5 different schemes before entering into one that we find fits the the assignment. But if this is the existing building, and I apologize if I characterize it as a garage, but it is a garage type construction. It's wood frame and so forth. So please don't feel like I'm disparaging the proportion that is there on the site. But if we looked at this in itself, this building, because of the felons program plus the requirement now for 2-car garages and so forth, is going to increase the size and scale to a point where this is not going to be as complementary to the existing shelter house as was currently done. And this masonry connection through here, engaging with it, again, loses the idea of it being a pavilion, which, again, you know, if it was a freestanding pavilion in landscape, you know, we'd be all for that. But trying to find a way of kind of connecting it and make it accessible, given that there's roughly a 18-inch drop between what is a fairly shallow height currently, and this probably would need to jump up a little bit just given current current practices and so forth. So let's say a 2-foot drop at that point becomes an incredibly long ramp for being accessible. And so again, this is where we opted to find a new diagram that was more efficient, that took on the promise of the view to the lake, and not focus as much to the north.
So I have a question about how far down does the foundation go for the new proposed where where the two-car garage is?
Yeah.
How far down are you going for the I'm assuming you would have to go up below grade to put a foundation in for the house, right? So there would be some kind of digging on site.
Correct.
Because our standards do address potential archaeological resources. And since this is probably the first time in decades that a new house has been constructed on the site of the Burnham estate, would there be potential archaeological resources of that terrace, of parts of the garden, or other parts of whatever you can find in an archaeological, in a dig, you could potentially find items that could tell the story of Burnham living on that site?
Well, I think anytime you put a shovel in the ground in Chicago, you bear that possibility. The gentleman that presented the fences, you dig a post hole, you might encounter something that has architectural significance. So that's for us to not discount that. Yeah, there might be, but we can't say yes, it is going to be there.
Go ahead, Matthew. I think you're unmuted.
Okay, yes, speaking as an archaeologist, I think I would say that there almost certainly will be quite substantial remains, and I would expect there to be both trash from the Burnham household, which would be of interest, and also structural features. We talked about the grading of the site, we've talked about the plinth, the terracing. I think there would be really valuable information for that. I also wanted to support Commissioner Zibin's comments in two respects. Firstly, I'm not sure it's terribly fruitful to go down the road of what would Burnham originally have wanted. I don't think that's a helpful way to think about that. And secondly, I don't think it's helpful to think of this as a vernacular or typical or in some way a mundane building and therefore less worthy of preservation than something grand. That's a position that we've moved away from as a commission over the last several years, and I think that's really important. So I think this is a very difficult decision, but I think I would want us to bear those factors in mind.
So just a couple of technical comments. One, I just want to clarify for the record that the applicant stated the Burnham structure as a shelter, not a garage, just as a clarification. I don't think that's going to affect anyone's judgment on this. But and the other comment I want to make is our last meeting, we looked at whether or not we were going to landmark something, and there was this question of integrity. And I believe it was actually the first question or the last question on the at either end of the standards we were looking at. And so when we're reviewing something and its appropriateness for demolition in these standards, I'm wondering where that question of integrity comes in.
So you asking me? Yes. So this, the significance of a property is really, it's a reflection of its ability to communicate that past and that significance, and that's what integrity is. Does it have sufficient physical integrity to communicate its past in a legible way? the one caveat, I think it's a great exercise for this commission to look at this through that lens and determine, does it communicate that past and that significance or not? I would just say that, remember that not all of those 7 components of integrity need to be present for it to have sufficient integrity. So, certainly there are portions of this property that are probably, severely compromised. When you talk about setting, when you talk about feeling, when you talk about association of the property, those are probably aspects that are really severely compromised in a way that you can't overcome. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not significant or that it doesn't have sufficient integrity elsewhere to communicate its past. So that's just a judgment call, for this commission. Are you able to better tell that story if it's retained? Can you, continue to tell that story, without this structure? Those are all, I think, very useful exercises. Are they able to use this property, in a reasonable way if it's retained? I think it might be helpful, if they're willing to come back and demonstrate the things that they studied and looked at, and why it doesn't work. Why, I think all of those are. You don't have to make a decision tonight, I guess, is what you're saying. That you can really explore multiple facets of this. You can explore integrity. You can explore how it can be used or not. If that's helpful, long-winded answer for you.
I just had one more comment. I would say, I wish, it's kind of unfortunate the timing about learning about the Burnham history, because I think potentially the applicant may have thought differently about the design with that history in mind, maybe not. And I think it's always easier to demo and build. It's easier, but it's not always the best thing. As someone that lives in a house that's 150 years old, I understand the struggle, like I do. But I would have liked to have seen plans that incorporated it in some way. And I know we're not looking at the plans at this point, but I think the plans I did see, it's not that I didn't like them, I did. I just would have liked to have seen an attempt at incorporating some of that history, but I know it wasn't known to you at the start, and it's, a snowball going down a hill, you've this far, it's the commission's planned, it's done, and clients want to move in, and I do understand that too, so.
And I think if I can just I think that we always were under the assumption that there was a pretty great possibility that he is involved in some way in the existence of this building. So I don't think that decision was in a vacuum necessarily. There was never any tangible, that building permit, in the city of Evanston does a lot of things really well, but historic record keeping is not one that it does really well. We don't have those building permits in our records, in our archives. Those are at the Art Institute, which is interesting.
I apologize that I didn't introduce myself before. I'm Paolo Fellini. I'd like to introduce my wife.
Could you speak into the microphone so we can?
I'm sorry that I did not introduce myself before because we're so anxious to get going with Dan on this one here. But I'm Paolo Fellini, and the one that would like to build a house there. And my wife, Diane, is here. And the way we came about is that, we just retired. So we were looking at what is the best place for us to retire, and we considered a few things. Like I was born and raised in Italy, for example. We looked at Italy as a retirement place. We look at the Northwestern retirement place, but we like Evanston. So we decided that, we were going to look hard for something in Evanston to retire because we like it. And we decided to, in the last part of our vacation in this life, we wanted to have it here in Evanston. And so when this property came up, we were very excited about it. And I wish we had a jewel of, somebody referred to as a jewel in 111 Burnham to conserve and to use. And I grew up in one house which was 400 years old. So I know exactly what it is, what old and preservation and changes and so on and so forth. And I would invite, if there is any discussions about it, any of you to go and visit the site and visit the location, because, you know, really, the intention for me was, hey, you know, that's great. Burnham is a good name. And then we looked at the place and said, you know, what is this? You know, how can we do it? Because there's no roof, no windows, and no walls. We didn't know what there was to save at this moment. So, but I would like to thank the people for the comments that you make, the one of the comments you're making. And I would like to thank Dan, WKA team, and for presenting this. And we're still looking to be able to move into this property in July 4th, 2027. And this is our goal, and that's what we would like to do. And I'd like to thank you and take into consideration what we want to do. And again, please come to see the property, because I think that it will give you an idea of what a jewel is or is not in this context of this meeting. Thank you.
I think I cut you off earlier while you were looking for, did you look at the standard for your argument for like?
I was trying to use logic
Yeah.
and common sense.
Right.
So I haven't yet. No.
Okay. Well, because, I mean, to move forward, I think we need to decide if it warrants demolition.
Well, I'm gonna check that. It's standard 1.
Okay.
Cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance, and I think that's what I was talking about when I said I was trying to think about it in terms of this spectrum of the significance of what's remaining. And, you know, it needs, obviously there's sort of like this thing where there's the significance and there's the, you know, what's left. And I guess that's the archaeological significance is the what's left. If it's all there and it's original, bingo, home run. Just to go back to my example, if it's the cornerstone, if it's almost nothing, it's hard to justify. And this is in between. So I would say, for me, the archaeological significance has been compromised by chopping up the lot and the addition, which destroys the original object quality of this thing.
So we have differing views. So how are we going to figure this out?
I mean, you could also, I don't know if it would be helpful, you can decide this, but you could also have them present the plans for the replacement as well, and then you can make a decision on if that testimony is also helpful by this commission. Even if you end up asking for more documentation to make a decision on demolition, they might need your feedback on the proposed structure too, and they can kind of work these scenarios in tandem where they're trying to demonstrate why they feel like demolition, is something that is appropriate, while also working towards a replacement structure that would meet the standards of this commission.
Right, but I mean, in my 4 years on the commission, we've never really had wholesale demolition of a property come before us. And I think that speaks to the testament of our community that we do not see a lot of tear downs. People value the homes in our historic districts, and I think that there is a very high standard to approve the demolition of a contributing structure in a historic district. And I think that's where personally I'm conflicted, is that I don't know that I'm okay with wholesale demolition of this site. I think that we could potentially reach a compromise of some sort where there is some preservation and new construction, but wholesale demolition, I think, is just personally off. I don't see that ever being approved, because this historic district has very high integrity of resources, and this structure, the tea house, is the last remnant that we can use as a tangible touch point to then have Evanstonians see and use it to explain the entire history of Daniel Burnham on that site. As soon as we lose it, we have no tangible resource left to speak to that history. Does anyone?
Is it possible we would, could do a continuance of, we can talk about this, but where maybe the applicant has an opportunity to bring back another iteration of, like you said, like another version of what a new build might look like with preserving it. I don't know. I'm just making a suggestion, if that's a possibility, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's up to you initially, the first meeting as a commission. Do you want to grant a continuance? They don't have to agree to it. You can, you should be asking for something specific. So, whether that's additional documentation on the condition of the structure, what studies they produce that demonstrate that it can't be incorporated into some kind of design. Those would be reasonable reasons to ask for a continuance. And then after that, it's up to them. You can't just continue it forever, so they would have to agree to further continuances or a vote or I don't know if that's helpful, but certainly you don't have to make a decision if there are things that you think would be helpful to inform the decision you're asked to make.
Maybe this isn't what I'm asking then, but I was thinking, I, like you, would like to see something that preserves the tea house, and it could also be a new build, I don't know, some combination, it would be a new plan basically. So I don't know if you could, or we just vote on this and then based on what happens, they either move forward with this one or come back with another idea. I don't know how that works exactly. Is that too much to be like, you know what I'm asking? I don't know.
Why don't you let us show us what would be there, to enhance the beauty of Evanston in this place?
It's exactly what I was going to say. We have some obviously very intelligent, very smart, experienced people here. It would be, first of all, I think when we talk about the tea house, and I see the earlier pictures of the way it used to be, if there was any way that that visual could be captured some way with this material, I don't know, that would be able to spark the kind of conversation that you were talking about, that this is a Burnham and this is who he was and this is one remaining example. That would be awesome. And that's why I was wondering if there were any like plans that where you could actually see how that building was incorporated, the 49 structure was incorporated, how it was put together. But qualified attempt would be wonderful.
Okay. So do you want to what do we have? Okay, so you want to proceed and give a presentation of your proposed design?
I will try to do this. Let's see. I'll also make a note that this is we received from Cade some historical background, and we understood that every 10 years or so, the Lakeshore Historic District gets whether things are contributing or not. And we understood that this property was not contributing until just recently. And so now we know that that it's a Burnham. And so then is it contributing? Is it landmark because of Burnham's name and so forth? It's just something that I find a bit curious, that if there's been tours around this talking about Burnham, why that didn't come up earlier within the reviews. Certainly the Burnham Wall is going to remain, and that is the biggest significant thing from a public perception point of view. There is a vision or a glimpse to the existing building that was there, but that has been compromised. So anyway, I will just jump forward here. I'm sorry. So these are comparisons in terms of the existing on the upper portion and then the intent that we have to kind of make a modest.
Sorry, is there a way to zoom in, because it's very hard to see for some? Or could we turn the lights off potentially?
Oh, that would be great. That would be great. And we appreciate everyone's patience. Okay. Very good. Okay, that's much better, I'm sure, for everyone. Boy, let's see, I don't know. Can you see, or if I'm standing here? So the upper portion is showing the existing building with its modest construction and the 15-inch offset stepping down into where the shelter house was. And in the proposal, we are trying to maintain or reduce its projection or prominence and work within the existing envelope of where the roof lines are, but also pulling back the building further from the west to minimize the impact of a new structure on that site. This is the history of the site. Here, if we knew our information before, we would know that there would be stairs that were coming down here. There'd be a architectural slanted berm that would go down to grade, and these walls would extend out. And as you can see, the shelter house would have that grand vista to the north, to the east, and to the west, we would presume. And it sits right there. Then in 1939 and 1950, the building, these walls were cut back, the building to the north, the vista is compromised, and then the freestanding pavilion is compromised. And the logic that we took is to take a relatively modest footprint, reduce the amount of impervious spaces on the site, and make a building that's as simple as possible, environmentally as taut as possible, and then take in the long view to the lake, which, again, we don't have the long view to the north, which would justify that northern expression. And yes, we are playing by the rules in terms of all the setbacks. In the 1938 document, there was no rear yard setbacks or side yard setbacks, and here we have maintained an increase of 30 feet. This is the footprint of the building. This is reducing the pervious pavement at the location here, and then this is cutting the building back. It's roughly 40 feet wide by the length of the building. These are the current setbacks. This is existing. This is the frontage of the existing building. So you can see the distance that we're pulling the building back. Comparisons of the view from the east. I believe it's the east. No, I'm sorry. This is looking north. This is. I'm sorry. Yeah. This is both looking north. And so this is existing house, this is the proposed, and these documents are generated per the Evanston's requirements in terms of no landscape, no materiality being shown. This is the existing approach from Burnham Place, and then this is the reproduction. And the intent is to have a single slope roof that drains back to the back. We are looking at using CLT for the roof system, which is a sustainable way of not only structuring the building, but then also getting warmth from the interior. The exterior siding is using some things that are evident within the district in terms of wood sidedness, and then the exterior insulation or exterior cladding for the concrete would be a cement panel. And this is a drawing that really describes what the existing condition of the building is. It is literally at grade. There's, the concrete apron that runs around the building runs right into the wood. There's no flashing that is evident between whatever foundation system is existing. A shallow crawl space. This is wood frame, and then a conventional wood truss up above. This is fiberglass shingles. There are gutters that drop down to thimbles, so somehow the water gets out. This is a frame, and the vents that are existing are venting the space that's captured down here, because obviously when this building was built, there was no vapor retarders and so forth that would be typically mandated at the present time. This is the proposed wall section that would be complementing the, or in comparison with this. We're using the best practices environmentally. And so the building structure is concrete and wood frame, similar to the existing, but we are super insulating the exterior wall, waterproofing, cement board, and then a ventilated rain screen to keep the building cool during the summer and in the winter. And there is rigid insulation and roofing on a low slope roof form. And so that the building gestures to the lake, lifting it up, and so the main public rooms are, let's see, I'm sorry. So really the gesture is to face out to the lake. The public rooms are here, and then the sleeping rooms are to the west, whereas currently this is kind of the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, and the bedrooms, and this is kind of this quasi, like, what do we do with the space, because it is uninsulated, it's unheated, and the 30 something, it's actually 35 feet in width. It's not the 30 feet that was permitted, at least on the building permits. So they figured out some stuff there. So anyway, so this is the wood structure. The roofing would not be seen from the general public. There's an internal gutter so that all the water drains out. And one of the things that we're doing is we're bringing the cars in as quickly as possible into the structure. We do have an elevator. This is important. This is problematic given the height of a car in the garage and structure above that. And so it does mean that there's going to be a step of, let's say 16 inches, 2 feet to get to that shelter house. By doing a new build, this maintains a continuous roof surface. It has a stairway that is not arriving back here, but it is actually arriving at the point of vista. And then there is an internal residential elevator to kind of ascend up, and so that all the floors are accessible by the felons. Meanwhile, the existing foundation or the existing retaining wall is untouched, and again, that is in our minds the most significant thing that the public perceives and engages with. It is a private residence, and so it's not something that the public is going to get up on top of this precipice to engage with the building. It's not like a landmark building where you're walking down the street and you're looking at it. You're looking up at a radically, an obtuse angle looking up at the building. So we're trying to be as most efficient energy-wise, use best practices, sustainable materials, triple glazed windows, and make a space that gives back a sizable terrace, which was the Burnham plan all at the beginning. But you can't solve every aspect, so but that's the proposal. So live up front, sleep in the back, 2-car garage, mechanical, and then a laundry down on the first floor. Landscape within this. Currently, this is a large concrete pad. Nothing all that exciting with that. And currently, the cars go deeper, so there's a greater need for impervious paving. Oh, and let's see, I'm sure that Joy and Carrie are saying we'll get to some of the perspectives. So these are the perspectives. And again, these are not necessarily dialed in, but the idea of a wood frame building. And so it's not as bright and reflective as a white building would be. This is without any landscape, but obviously landscape is evident. And then these are the buildings. This is the expression of the drive-in entryway, and then you ascend up and you arrive within the public room and then look out on the broad terrace.
So you mentioned landscape. I want to ask you: was there a landscape architect that worked with Burnham, or did Burnham just do it himself? The wall, the terrace, and all that, was that his design idea, or?
I couldn't say for sure whether it was whether it was O.C. Simons or it's not Olmsted. I can't say. I can't say.
Well, no.
But anyway, but the photographs show that it is a terrace, a broad terrace, a building in it, and you walk through a beautiful wooded alley to arrive on that elevated terrace. And again, that would be spectacular. So there's no question that that had real architectural significance, and our opinion is that the building itself right now is not is hampered. It's been by a number of moves, from the subdivision, the roofing, the removal, the addition of the building, and then the building of the building to the north. All those things contribute, as well as the park. Originally, the building looked out over the lake, and it no longer does. I mean, a step back from there.
Well, all those things were very bad, but the next thing is going to be much worse.
I just want to go back to public comment. I think some of the neighbors wanted to ask about setback. So
Sure.
I think you addressed that, but I just wanted to make sure that we included that.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so this drawing here is illustrating the setbacks that are provided. There's a 20-foot setback along Lakeshore Boulevard. That's by zoning. This is, and actually by the, I believe it was also in the subdivision rules. The existing building is setting back 42 feet, and we are setting back roughly, 65 or whatever feet. So we're pulling back dramatically from there. Because of the requirement now for a 2-car garage, the building does need to broaden. And so we've extended this, although we are beyond the 30-foot setback that we are required for a rear yard, and we are maintaining the setback or even pushed slightly inboard of where the existing building is, and there's a 27-foot setback along Burnham Place, and that we've been maintaining as well. So we're maintaining these two. We're pulling the building back to here. We're widening it just enough for the garage, and we're still providing more than the required rear yard setback. And the height restriction obviously is well under what one needs, and also rides within the roof line heights of the existing building. So we're trying to be as thoughtful, as modest, as energy efficient, best practices with this new addition, and try to get a bold idea of this gesture out to the lake and make the felons happy, give them a place that they can age in place. Yeah.
Great. Do we have any questions for the?
Going back to the original pavilion, do we know how close this is to Burnham's World's Fair?
Let's see, that was
Tea houses?
1893? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
is this a replica of it? Is it a?
I think they provided in the public comment a photo. I would not say it's a replica
Okay.
of it.
Yeah,
by
I
any
can't pull
means.
it up, sorry.
Yeah, I can,
Yeah.
here, I can pull it up if you'd like.
And then the other question I have is, do we have any original drawings of the main estate home that was torn down?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, I've worked on a lot of coach houses by, famous architects, and there's always some detailing, and this has some really pretty detailing on the outside, although it's simple, it has some nice detailing. And I'm just curious how close it is to, was this original, whether it was his draftsman or him, whether it was his draftsman or him, was this an original concept building, or did he pull the details from his estate, and did he pull it from the tea house in the Columbia Exposition?
I mean, from what I can tell, what I've read from the property is it said that Burnham purchased the house. It was already existing, and I think it was a 20-room house, so rather large.
So this
and,
is pretty original all on its own?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think in Chris Hartzell's report, she refers to the tea house at the fair and then sees references to that somewhat. It's on the left.
Yeah, that would be it. It does have a tile roof, yes.
Questions?
Sorry, the reason I was asking is
Yeah.
I keep going back to, are we saving something because, because it's Burnham's, or does the house have significance? And that's where I'm struggling.
So association with the architect versus architectural details and contributing features of that, right? That are
Correct.
significant?
Correct.
Okay. May I ask a question of, would relocation of the tea house be a potential solution? Where we could potentially ask to have that tea house structure relocated off-site and then
Yeah, it's missing a west wall, but it could be, the existing masonry building could be removed. One could keep the original fabric of the wood. You could take all the wood that is not in bad condition. We don't know what's there. One could take all of that, and it probably would be more efficient to replace the building that's there just by documenting that carefully. Maybe the roof could be retained and put onto a new structure. And yeah, you could relocate it anywhere. You could build it, put it in a field, or if Evanston had a field or a park that needed a room that was a room with a fireplace.
Well, I'm just wondering, because I think that's where getting a condition assessment or condition report of that structure would be helpful, because then we would know if it could be moved, or, what the condition is of that structure, I think would assist us.
Yeah, just practicality. Again, just practicality. Being a architect that is a generalist and not like a building mover, I would assume that the cement and the plaster would severely crack in terms of any movement. But the wood subframing and so forth could potentially be, salvaged and relocated and rebuilt. So that it's all possible. Yeah.
There's a lot of discussions on how this building is. I would suggest that if you want to go see it, I'd be very open to take anybody of you to visit the building so you can assess yourself what is the status of this shed. Because we're talking about like it's a house. It's not. It's a shed. So I would invite anybody who wants to do it, take the time to do it.
I'd like to do it.
I think that would be
Helpful,
great
yeah.
for us to, I mean, how do we handle that with, do we go in groups of 3 or do we go in, because I don't know that if we can all.
I'd have to look into it.
Okay.
I think there's something about site visits that are permitted, I believe, but it's possible. We'll look into the specifics.
Okay. So if we wanted to do that, I would assume that we would need to continue this, right, to then be able to accommodate a site visit?
Yeah, I would just say, is there anything else that you would request from them in the meantime that they need to help you make a decision whether these standards are met or not? Also, if you visit the site, that knowledge is somewhat internalized, so maybe if they were able to document that in some way so that the public is able to understand what that condition was in a better way. So even if you visit the site, I think requesting additional information on the condition in terms of photographs and additional testimony, I think is valuable.
They mentioned that one of the walls is missing, so there's been some investigation, but I'd like to know how the new envelope was put around it, what the construction was in 49. Did they take what did they remove and what did they add? And that's going to tell us a lot about how much of it is actually there, and that maybe there's very little there. But then on the other hand, it could be if there just may be a lot of intact structure, but take a little bit more investigation to find out, I would assume.
I was just going to say that I Carrie, I'm project architect with the house. We've visited several times. I would say that in the 49 edition, all of the original floors were replaced. It is obvious that some window proportions might have even been modified. The photos and none of the application necessarily imply that there ever was a fireplace or any running water for tea if it was a tea house. There's no molding or trim details on the interior or any ornamentation of ceilings. It, to be frank, reads like a 70s developer interiors. So just for what's been there and what's been modified, that is what's left on the inside, and the opening that was created to the west doesn't respect any of the proportions of the openings that were there on the west in the original building.
I just have a question, kind of veering in a different direction. If you would decide that it had to be maintained, what does that involve? Does that involve us tearing it down and rebuilding it? Does it involve us working with what's there and trying to bring it up to standards? Because I don't really understand how we could live in it. And I'm asking this with due respect, how we could live in it without either rebuilding it in one way or another. It's kind of not in a livable condition.
I mean, if just on a purely technical level, if it's a frame house, insulation can be blown in and utilities provided. So it's not, it would be a ton of work, and it's probably not what you have in mind. And I'm not suggesting it's a good idea, but it's technically feasible.
Great. I mean, that's what I'm wondering, is it almost has to be torn down to be rebuilt? I mean, almost.
Well, I mean, I think that's an open question. I mean, we haven't seen a report. I don't think anybody can, I mean, it sounds like it's not in great shape.
I'm just trying to figure it out from of what.
Can you
we
pass her the
would need.
microphone, please?
Can you give her the microphone?
She was speaking into it, sorry.
Oh. We just couldn't hear you.
I was just looking at it from the point of view of what we are potentially looking at, because I think that's fair for us to know too, as we make decisions.
Well, I think that's a big question, because I think this body's job is not to tell you how to renovate the house. Sorry? Right. Yeah, I mean, you bought the house with the assumption that you were going to be able to do this, and it would be very unfortunate for you if that ended up not being an accurate assumption. I think that's where we're at.
And I would say getting some kind of condition report would be helpful instead of just anecdotal. It's not bad. It's not livable. I mean, it would be to have pictures or some kind of condition assessment would be helpful to understand. So
I think, I don't know if the question's being really directly answered, so I'll try to answer it. It's what this commission's responsible for saying would be saying that portion of the building is distinctive and we don't feel like it meets the standards. Like, let's assume that's what they're saying. It's then your responsibility as the homeowner and the architect to propose a solution for this commission to then react to. So there's probably a multitude of potential solutions, or maybe there isn't, or maybe that exercise is that we went down that road and it's not, it's not functional. All of that is still helpful for making this decision, if that's.
Yeah, I just wanted a frame of reference for what we were looking at potentially.
And as a corollary to that, I do think it's important for us to think about how this site is used. Like I said, I think we have to be mindful of putting restrictions on something that make it untenable for it to be used. I mean, if and I'm just this is hypothetical. If we say that it can't, that it's worth saving, somebody, if they come back and show us examples of how that could happen, if none of them seem tenable, and I'm not a real estate agent, but it has to be a living, breathing building, it can't be a monument.
that's why I asked about relocation, was that we could potentially reach a win-win solution where we then have this tea house that's relocated, that's publicly accessible. It's not part of a private house. And then they could potentially get a new house on the site that, meets our standards, so.
I'll donate it if you want to relocate it.
I like that idea also. I don't know if it's feasible, but the relocation to like a park or even across the street, I think it's an interesting idea, and I think it's, I would support it if it was possible, I guess.
By the way, you would get a tax break for that.
Do we need to make a motion or to continue? And then are we asking for anything from the applicant while we?
Sounds like you're asking for access to their home.
Right. With that and
a report.
And a report. So.
Well, what are the specifications for this report?
That's what I would like to ask.
Okay.
What do you want to, what kind of information do you think you would need for a condition report to?
Materials, for one thing, condition of the materials, integrity, whether or not they're held together sufficiently to still be a building. And I'm sure that these guys are much smarter than I am. They can tell me more than I can ask
Right.
them.
Okay. So, all right, so are we, the next question is, do we continue it to our January meeting? Or did you?
The only thing I'm saying is that I think the report, we have to be specific in what we're looking for. It's not just a inspector report. It would be a historic preservation report or something of that sort. And I don't know who does that. But there's lots of people out there that do it.
We're talking about building, we're talking about building forensics, right? We're not talking about somebody who's going to research the history.
No, this is not a history report. This is more of, like Charles was
This
saying,
is
it's more of-
existing conditions.
Right.
For instance, if you separated that structure from the 49 structure, do you end up with something with 3 solid walls or 1 solid wall? I was interested in what, the dimensions of the structural materials are, I mean, we certainly don't want to try to suggest anything that's impossible, but we do want to get a pretty good picture of what is possible.
And I think included in that would be is, can the building even be moved? Because, again, Glencoe moved Frank Lloyd Wright House.
The Booth Cottage.
They've moved like 6 homes, but I know what's been involved in it, so.
Well, I think what would be helpful is that the condition report would then help us understand if it could stay on site, if it could be relocated, and that would be like to understand the condition of the materials and those potential outcomes. Right? So then.
Pardon me. There's several options. Joy was just mentioning that Bully & Andrews has worked with KNS to do existing reports of conditions. That was for a project at the University of Chicago for, I believe, it was another house. I think you might want to have some exploratory openings made within the building to assess what the framing members actually are and the spacing. Also, the opening a floor portion to look at the crawl space. It might be able to be done digitally with a camera, as well as getting up into the attic. That again could be done. I don't think you're looking, but you may be for engaging a architectural, restoration architect. Harbo, Gunny Harbo would be someone that could take a look or give his assessment as well of what is left given the existing building. But
I also just want to say this out loud. It's implied, but we're asking, I don't think anybody up here is getting out their checkbook to hire this consultant. So this is something that we would be asking the owner to do.
Right.
Okay, just so we're clear on that.
No.
Could we take an incremental step? Because I think maybe if we go to visit with our own eyes,
Sure.
It might not be necessary to pay a consultant to tell us what time it is.
No, but well, that's right. Our site visit could result in the commission drafting a condition assessment of the site. Or just, I'm not saying we would know for sure. We might still have questions, in which case maybe it is necessary. But if we can go and are satisfied with our understanding of the condition, it seems like it's fair to them and just kind of common sense to try to do that before we ask them to hire a consultant.
Would that push it out another month though? Or like if we didn't get what we needed, you know what I mean? Like, we go to the next meeting and say the site visit wasn't enough? You know what I mean? Or are we saying we do a site visit and then we can tell them if we need more and then they can get like, there's not a lot of time, I guess I'm thinking, between now and the next meeting and the holidays. I don't know, what's the ask? Like, we go visit and then like we say that not enough. Now they have 2 weeks to get a report, like, I'm just trying to understand the timing there.
I mean, you can continue it. The only time you have to stick to the 45 days or whatever is in the ordinance is if they're not agreeing to the continuance. And
Okay.
so I think if they are agreeing to produce something and allow you to visit the property, there's definitely more flexibility. It can be on the next agenda if for some reason the information is not able to be produced in that amount of time. It can be continued to the meeting after.
Let's go see the property first, and then you assess yourself. And if you think that we need additional studies or whatever to determine it, then we do it. But there's no sense of doing a deep study and assess whether the shed is movable, and if it's not necessary, it's money that we'd prefer not to throw away.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was just saying, I was trying to be sensitive to your timing. Like, it may push it out more for you, but so you're aware of that, if we need a report.
Depends when we can go. I mean, if you can go this week, it's fine, or next week would be good.
Well, we'll work on the
I think
details.
we can coordinate the schedule, but
I think at least if I can go tonight, if I can summarize at least what I'm hearing is I think there are questions up here as a group on the condition, the integrity of the building, whether it can be adapted and integrated into a new structure, and an aside question is whether it can be relocated. And those are kind of the questions that they want some kind of additional information on, and part of that might be answered through a site visit. Part of that might just be, these are kind of cues for you in that amount of time to kind of work on your own narrative and testimony that you might provide and bring to the next meeting as well.
So, do we need a motion for continuance? All right, so I guess I'll make a motion to continue this case until the regularly scheduled January meeting, so that's January 20th. In the meantime, we will coordinate a site visit with the owner and architect, and that's it, right? Okay, so is there a second?
I'll second that, but I also can we have a little discussion on that? I just want to clarify what that could mean for the applicant in terms of how many times they can come back. Can you guys just shed light on that?
It's 2 times, right?
And can you continue infinitely? If there was a no vote, can you come back and with changes? Like, how does all that shake out?
So if you vote no, then they would have to reapply. So that's typically why it's beneficial to, if they agree to continuing something. I don't think anyone's in the interest. Eventually it might get to that point. You can't continue something indefinitely. You can continue it as long as they're agreeing to it and there's a rationale, and you're working towards some kind of mutually agreeable, resolution. So I think, does that answer the question?
So, but there is a limited number of continuations, and that's 2? Okay. And in the past, when we've asked people to come back, that's never been on a no vote. It's always been on a continuation.
Yeah, the only time, we've had one that came back for reconsideration at one time, and then I believe that's something the commission took out of its rules and procedure, but I'd have to double check.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just some technical.
All right, so the motion to continue with site visit has been made and seconded. Because we have virtual participation, may I have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Jacobs?
Abstain.
Commissioner Smith? Charles? Commissioner Ziem?
Yes.
Chair Klein?
Aye.
Okay. And Matthew?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, thank you. And do I have the agenda? So that is the conclusion of that. Next is the item, do you want to give an update on discussion?
Yeah, this is really quick. I think we already talked about the special meeting in January for being scheduled on the 13th.
Right.
And then just a reminder to send nominations for officer positions. Those will be voted on January 20th.
All right, so with no further business, we can adjourn the meeting.